He took the blade for her, and she didn't even know his name. The Hall of Stars was full of silence and sharp eyes. Guards lined the walls. Ambassadors stood behind glass shields. Every move was watched. Every breath counted. At the center of it all stood Sanari Valara, youngest diplomat of the Valari Empire, calm, proud, and dressed in robes that shimmered like frost. She didn't speak much. She didn't smile either. Her people believed emotion was weakness, especially for leaders. Behind her, one of the human guards shifted his stance. Quiet. Still. His name was Reed Voss, but to her he was just a shadow in black armor, just one more human tool in the corner. Reed didn't mind. He was used to being invisible. That's what a good bodyguard did. Stand still. Stay quiet. Watch everything. But today something felt wrong, too quiet, too perfect. His eyes scanned the balconies, the side doors, the heat vents. And then, he saw it, a flicker of metal behind the drapes, too fast. Too low. His training took over. He stepped forward, then ran, straight toward the platform where Sanari stood. At first, she didn't notice, until he shouted, "Get down!" The entire room turned. Sanari's eyes widened. A man in red armor leaped from above, blade raised, sharp and glowing with poison. Reed moved faster. He threw himself between the assassin and the girl. The blade sank into his shoulder, straight through the armor. He grunted. Blood poured. The smell was sharp and hot, but he didn't fall. He grabbed the attacker and slammed him to the ground. 2 shots from security ended it fast. Reed stood shaking, then dropped to one knee, then the floor. Darkness swallowed him. Sanari stared down at him. Frozen. This man, this human, had bled for her. He was still alive. Barely. Guards rushed in. Medics shouted. The floor stained red. Still, her eyes were locked on his. He blinked once before losing consciousness. And just before, they carried him away, she whispered, soft, breaking every rule of her people. "Don't die, please." Hours later, she sat alone in her private chamber. She wasn't supposed to feel this way. He was just a guard, just a human, just nothing. But she kept hearing that sound, the way he shouted, the way he moved, the way he fell. For her assistant entered quietly. "Ambassador, the council is waiting for your statement." Sanari didn't answer. "Ambassador?" She looked up. "What was his name?" "Who?" "The guard." The file says Reed Voss. Assigned yesterday." She whispered it once to herself. "Reed. He's still in recovery. Unconscious. Poisoned." Sanari stood. "I want to see him. That's against protocol." She looked her assistant dead in the eye. "Then protocol is broken." Elsewhere, in the cold white of the med bay, Reed floated between pain and silence. Machines beeped around him. His chest rose and fell slowly. He didn't know where he was, but somewhere deep inside, he remembered her face and her voice. The last words he heard, "Don't die, please." He wanted to laugh or cry, but all he could do was breathe and wait. She was forbidden to care, but she went to see him anyway. The doors to the human medbay were locked, protected, watched, restricted. Sanari Valara was not on the list of approved visitors. She wasn't supposed to walk these halls. She wasn't supposed to feel anything. Her title demanded distance. But that night, she wore a black travel cloak, no jewelry, no guards, no emblems. Just a quiet question on repeat in her mind. Why would he bleed for me? She moved like a shadow, trained in diplomacy, yes, but also in evasion. Her kind never expected to enter back doors. Tonight, she chose one. Inside the med bay, Reed Voss lay still, no armor, no badge, no rank displayed, just pale skin, stitched wounds, and a weak pulse echoing across the room. Machines whispered. Lights blinked, no guards. Sanari stepped closer. Her breath caught when she saw him clearly. He looked small without the gear, not weak, Just human. A man, not a soldier, not a weapon. Just someone who made a choice. She sat beside the bed. At first, she said nothing. Her people didn't believe in thank you. They believed in honor through silence. But Reed's blood had spilled because of her. Silence wasn't enough now, so she whispered. Not loud, not strong, just true. You weren't meant to move. You weren't meant to care. You were only meant to stand. She looked at his face. You broke every rule. For me. She reached into her cloak and pulled out a cloth. The same one stained with his blood. She had taken it from the Hall of Stars floor. No one knew. She placed it gently beside his hand. I was trained never to speak to your kind, never to look at you as anything more than protection. She paused. But I looked. She leaned in. I saw you. Reed stirred, just slightly. His fingers twitched. Sanari stood quickly, afraid, ready to hide. But his lips moved. Barely. Are you okay? He murmured. She froze. Even on the edge of death, he asked about her. I am, she whispered. He opened his eyes. Just enough to find her shape. You weren't supposed to be here, he said. I know. He smiled weakly. I'm glad you came anyway. She stared at him. You remember? Your voice, he said. It was the only thing I heard. After the blade. She sat down again. You were not chosen to protect me. You were assigned. Random. I'd do it again, he said. Why? His eyes met hers. Because someone had to care, and I did. Silence. Tense. Fragile. Then she said softly, no one's ever bled for me. He blinked slowly. Then they were fools. Outside, her assistant searched the diplomatic wing. Where is she? He muttered. She's not in her quarters. But he would not find her tonight, not here, because Sanari had crossed a line not drawn on any map, a line of feeling. And for once she didn't want to go back. Reed fell asleep again. She stayed another hour, just watching his chest rise and fall. Not as a diplomat, not as a superior, but as someone curious. Someone changed. Before she left, she touched the cloth again, lifted it to her chest, folded it quietly, and whispered, You gave me something I can never repay, so I will return what I can, my voice, my truth, and if needed, my protection. Then, she turned and vanished into the hallway, like she was never there. But in her heart, a storm had begun, and nothing, not protocol, not politics, was going to stop it now. They warned her about humans, but he just sat in the garden. The Valari were clear. Do not trust humans. They said humans were wild inside, built on instinct, emotion, and chaos. Unpredictable, too quick to feel. Too slow to forget. Sanari had memorized those words since childhood. But now, every time she closed her eyes, she saw Reed, bleeding on the floor, whispering her name without even knowing her. And today, she was going to break another rule. She waited until midday. No guards, no cameras in the East Gardens, just flowers. Silence. And him. Reed sat under a thin tree. His arm was in a sling. His side was still healing. But the sun felt good. And the air didn't smell like metal. He didn't notice her at first. She stood behind a glass wall hidden in shadow, watching him, not because she was unsure, because she wanted to understand. Why would someone risk death without reward? Why? Had he done it? She stepped forward, no cloak, no disguise this time. He turned, blinked once and smiled. You again? You sound disappointed, she said softly. I'm just surprised. Why? I didn't think you'd come back. Not in daylight. She sat beside him on the bench. Silence followed. Gentle, not awkward. Then he asked, How much trouble are you in? A lot. He nodded. Well, it was worth it. She turned to him, puzzled. You almost died. Yeah, he said. But for once it meant something. They sat for minutes without speaking. Then Sanari said, They warned me about your kind. I believe it. They said humans act without thinking, that you're messy, that you bond too fast. Reed chuckled. They're not wrong. She tilted her head. And yet you ran for me. You were in danger. You didn't even know me. I didn't need to. She looked down at her hands. We don't protect strangers where I come from. Reed leaned back against the bench. Maybe that's why your people don't know what love looks like. She froze. Love? He shrugged. Not the romantic kind, just the human kind. The kind where you look at someone and say they matter, so I'll bleed if I have to. Sanari was quiet. Then she asked, Do I matter to you? He didn't answer immediately. Then he said, I didn't take a blade for your title. I took it for the girl behind the mask, the one who looked so alone I couldn't walk away. In the silence that followed, something shifted, not between enemies, not between species, between two people who no longer fit the roles they were born into. Sanari stood. I must go. If they see us, they'll end your career. She nodded. He looked up at her. Then go. She turned to leave. Then paused. You were sitting here alone. Why? I like the quiet. No, why here? Why not inside? Reed looked at the garden single flower tree, the one that bent toward the sun. My mother had a tree like this on Earth, he said. Before the war, before everything. Sanari looked at the tree too, then whispered, Maybe that's why I came here. He raised an eyebrow. To remember something beautiful? He asked. She shook her head. To plant something new. That night. Her name was mentioned in 3 reports. One questioned her absence from a political dinner. One noted a silent drone recording strange movement in the garden. The last one came from her own father. Be careful, Sanari. Curiosity becomes danger, and affection becomes betrayal. She read it alone, then deleted it, because the truth was simple now. The warnings came too late. She didn't just care. She believed in him. He was just a guard, but she made him her shield. The summit was heating up. Talks between the Valari and Earth's delegates were breaking down. Whispers of betrayal, failed agreements, and threats of withdrawal. Inside the glass towers, everything was calm on the surface, but tension pressed behind every word, and Sanari Velara could feel the pressure like a stone on her chest. She was being watched. Her father had sent her a message. End all contact with the human, appear strong, remain silent. But how do you stay silent about someone who saved your life? How do you walk past the one who bled for you again and again, and pretend they're just another face? She couldn't and she wouldn't. Reed stood outside the Hall of Records. He wasn't on duty anymore. After the incident, they reassigned him. No weapons, no armor, just empty hands and a quiet warning. Keep your distance, you're a distraction. He didn't expect to see her again, so when Sanari walked toward him, robe flowing, eyes locked on his, he stood up fast. Sanari, he whispered. She didn't speak, just nodded for him to follow. He did, into a small temple courtyard, an ancient place of Valari custom. No cameras, no guards, just her and him. At the center of the courtyard stood a narrow bowl filled with blue flame. She placed her hand above it and then, without a word, reached into her robe and pulled out a silver band. Reed blinked. What is that? It is called a Viren bond ring, she said. A symbol of protection, in my people's ways. It is worn only by one chosen to be a personal shield. He swallowed hard. Why? Are you telling me this? Because I'm giving it to you. His heart skipped. Sanari, that's not allowed. You'll lose everything. I already almost lost you. She stepped forward, holding the band in both hands. You are not my bodyguard anymore, Reed. You are more. I don't understand. She looked into his eyes. You're not just protecting me now. I am choosing you to stand by my side. She slipped the band around his wrist. It glowed softly, responding to her presence. And in that moment, he wasn't just a soldier. He became hers. They stood in silence. Then Reed whispered, "Why me?" She smiled. "Because I see the way you look at danger, and you don't run." She added, "And because when the world turned its back on me, you didn't." Later that day, a drone report reached the Central Command. Footage showed Sonari placing the ring. And something more. After the bond was sealed, she bowed her head. To him, a Valari diplomat, bowing to a human. The footage leaked. Within hours, 1,000 voices erupted. She made a human her personal shield? This is betrayal of tradition. It's a romantic bond. Remove her now. Sonari's father arrived in person, his voice sharp, his words colder than steel. You embarrassed the High Line. You bound yourself to a species we do not trust. Do you understand what you've done? Sonari stood tall. I understand perfectly. And you will remove the bond? She looked at Reed, then said softly, No. The room went silent. Her father stepped closer. If you don't denounce this, you will be stripped of all title. You will lose your seat. You will be disowned. She smiled gently. I'd rather lose power than lose honor. He turned away in rage, but she didn't follow. She stayed where she was, by the side of the man who had never left hers. That night, Reed sat alone near the training fields. He stared at the glowing bond ring on his wrist. He had been a soldier his whole life, but no uniform, no flag, no mission had ever meant as much as the moment she gave him this. And behind him, she whispered, You were just a guard. He turned. And now? She smiled. Now, you're my shield. They put her on trial for loving a human. The hall was cold, tall walls, white floors, eyes like knives on every side. It wasn't called a courtroom. The Valari called it a house of balance. But Sonari Velara knew the truth. This was a trial, and she was the one being judged, not for stealing, not for betraying her post, but for choosing a human, choosing him. Reed stood in the crowd behind the glass barrier. He wasn't allowed to speak. He wasn't allowed to move closer. His fingers clenched at his sides, the bond ring glowing faintly on his wrist. He had been shot, burned, scarred, but watching her stand alone before the council, unprotected, questioned, this hurt more than any wound. Ambassador Sonari, the High Speaker said, You stand, accused of breaking sacred Valari tradition. I did not break anything, she answered calmly. I followed something older than tradition. The room murmured. You bonded a human. That act hasn't been done in our recorded history. I know. You placed your title at risk, your future, your family, your bloodline. For what? She looked toward the glass barrier, straight at Reed, and said, For someone who bled when no one else would, who stood when others hid, who didn't see me as a crown, but as a person. The council elder stood slowly. You admit you have affection for the human? I do. You admit it is more than duty? Yes. Then, you leave us no choice. He raised a silver seal. By Valari law, you must be stripped of position and caste unless you denounce the bond. Gasps filled the room. Everyone waited. Even Reed. He wanted to scream, Don't. He wanted to run to her, but all he could do was watch and wait. Sonari lifted her chin, eyes steady, voice clear. I will not denounce him, because he never once denied me. Not when I was in danger, not when I was hated, not even now. She paused, then added, If loving someone like that is a crime, then write my name in your books with pride. Silence, heavy, cracking, and then the gavel struck. 3 times, the sentence was spoken. Ambassador Senari Valara, you are hereby relieved of rank, duty, and blood privilege. She bowed once, not in shame, but in peace. Outside, cameras flashed. Protesters shouted. Supporters wept. The story spread across every channel. Valari diplomat loses title over human bond. Love or treason? Is this the start of something greater? In human cities, people lit candles. In Valari cities, voices rose, some in anger, others in hope. The world was changing, and she was at the center of it. Later, Reed found her standing at the edge of the lake near the landing pads. No guards now. No orders. Just her, alone. She didn't turn when she heard him approach. You lost everything, he said softly. No, she replied. I lost titles, but I gained the one thing I never thought I'd have. What's that? She looked at him. Freedom. He took her hand. No one stopped him. Not anymore. She looked at the ring on his wrist. It still glows. It always will, he said. They stood in silence, then she asked, Would you have spoken for me? In front of the council? He asked. She nodded. I would have burned down the whole room, he said. She smiled. You didn't need to, she whispered. I spoke for us both. He could have walked away. Instead, he spoke the truth. The human embassy was quiet, not peaceful. Just waiting. Waiting for Reed Voss to speak. He stood at the podium, facing a sea of officials, Valari, human, and others from outer colonies, reporters, diplomats, critics, supporters. They had all come for one reason, to hear the man who turned a galaxy upside down by loving the wrong person, or maybe the right one. Reed didn't want to speak. He hated microphones. He hated politics, but he hated injustice more. And Senari had stood alone for too long, so now it was his turn. He took a deep breath, looked straight ahead, and began. My name is Reed Voss. I'm not a senator, not a captain, just a former soldier. I was trained to follow orders, but the day I jumped in front of that blade, no one ordered me. He paused. Let them absorb that. I didn't save her because of protocol. I saved her because it was the right thing to do. He looked toward the far corner, where Senari sat quietly in a plain robe, no crown, no badge, but to him, still a queen. You asked me why I didn't walk away when she was being judged, why I didn't hide when it got hard. I'll tell you why. He stepped forward. Because when everyone turned their backs on her, she turned toward me. Because she saw more than a guard. She saw a man, a soul, a choice. He lifted his wrist, showing the glowing bond ring. This isn't just tradition. This is truth. She chose me and I chose her. I don't speak Valari, I don't wear robes, but I know what loyalty is and I know what love looks like. The room was quiet now. No one moved. Even the critics not and listened. You call it a scandal. I call it a promise. That one day, maybe humans and Valari can stop pretending we're enemies and start acting like people again. He stepped back. Voice, steady eyes on only one face, Senari's. And she smiled at him, a small smile. But to him, it was everything. The speech spread like wildfire. Human bodyguard defends exiled alien diplomat. The man who chose love over orders. Valari Council divided after powerful statement. Some said it was foolish. Others said it was brave. But most called it something new. Hope. That night, in a small apartment away from the embassies, Reed and Senari sat together in silence. He held a warm drink. She held his hand. You were brave today, she said. I was scared the whole time, he replied. She leaned on his shoulder. Still brave. I don't care what happens now, he whispered. I don't care what they take from us. She smiled. They can't take what matters. He looked at her. What does matter, Senari? She turned to him and said, that you stayed, She lost her title, but found something stronger. The stars above Muriel Station were clear tonight. No warships, no guards, just quiet skies. And beneath them, Sanari Velara sat with her feet in the water of a small lake on the outer colony world. Far from the politics, far from her people's halls of judgment. She had lost her title, lost her family name, lost the golden crest she once wore over her heart. But she wasn't empty, not anymore. Because beside her, laying on the grass, hand folded, behind his head, was Reed Voss. Still her shield, still her home. The people of this border world didn't know their full story, only that a fallen diplomat and a quiet human had come together to build something new. A school, a clinic, a garden in the dust. No one here bowed. No one stared. They just helped, side by side, one shovel, one seed, one day at a time. I still think about it, Reed said quietly. Sanari looked at him. About what? That day in the hall, when I took the blade. She nodded. He smiled. I'd do it again. She took his hand. You already have, she said, in 100 other ways. They walked through the village at dusk. Children waved, merchants smiled. An old woman handed them 2 cups of warm fruit tea. Sanari drank hers slowly, watching a young Velari girl and a human boy play with rocks near the fountain. Look at them, she whispered. No rules, no division. Reed nodded. They don't care about bloodlines or politics. They just care who shares the snack, she smiled. He nudged her shoulder. You made this possible. No, she said. We did. Later that night, they sat on the roof of their small home. The stars above blinked gently like they were listening. Reed leaned back, arms crossed behind his head. Sanari pulled her cloak tighter. I used to think my name was everything, she said. And now? She looked at him. I think names can fade, but choices echo. He nodded. So what echoes for you? She didn't answer right away. Then, a man who stood for me when no one else did. A bond I never saw coming, and a life I never expected, but would never trade. She turned to him. And you? He smiled. A girl with fire in her voice, who lost a crown and didn't flinch, who walked through shame and came out shining. She laughed softly. You make me sound stronger than I am. No, he said. I just see you clearer than they ever did. In the years to come, their names would be whispered across stars, not as symbols of scandal, but as the beginning of something better. Humans and Velari began small programs together, learning, healing, building. And always, the people asked, where did it start? No one knew the full answer, but some said it began when a soldier took a blade, and a girl broke protocol to hold his hand. She lost her title but found something stronger. She found someone who didn't need her name, only her truth.